Good morning, everyone. Once again, I would like to thank the organizers for putting this meeting together and all of you for coming to talk with interest about our country. To start, I wanted to ask you a question. Have you ever imagined what your life would have been like if you had bought Apple shares in 1985 or Amazon shares before 2009? And without using such extreme examples, how many times have you done the math on your calculators to see how you would have done if you had invested in that special opportunity that slipped away? Today, I am in a position to say that Argentina in 2026 is one of those rare great opportunities that life puts in front of us. And I don't say this merely because I am the president. I imagine you often hear this kind of speech from heads of state, but I also imagine that few present as solid an investment case as Argentina does today. A few weeks ago, we completed our second year in office. During this first stage, we focused on fixing the economic disaster we inherited, one of the worst macroeconomic situations in the world, with a 15-point deficit. Fiscal balances as a percentage of GDP, combining the Treasury and the central bank. Inflation was running at 1% per day, country risk was above 3,000 basis points, and the debt was suffocating. And we quickly made a 180-degree turn and became one of the 5 select countries in the world, with a fiscal surplus to the point that Argentina has had 2 years of surplus for the first time since 2008. If this continues, this year would be the first time in many decades that Argentina has 3 consecutive years of fiscal surplus without default. But it is even more valuable. This is the first time in approximately 100 years that Argentina has a surplus without a hyperinflation that wiped out the debt and without a unilateral recession of contracts and property rights. In other words, it is the first time that Argentina has a surplus as the result of a decision, a political decision and a sustainable political program. The surplus allowed us to fix the monetary mess and bring inflation under control, which dropped to its lowest level in 8 years, leading to a decrease in country risk to around 500 basis points. We achieved all this purely through willpower, with the support of a people determined to leave behind a long history of misery and impoverishment. Support that was reaffirmed in the last elections in October, where we beat Peronism by more than 10 points nationwide, and if we compare it to Kirchnerism, we had a 17-point lead. In other words, while the opposition spent the last 2 years trying to sabotage our plan and stirring up fears of default, we persisted, weathered the storm, fulfilled each and every one of the payments we had ahead of us, and the people doubled down on their support. For our administration, which is by no means a minor detail, given that our main challenge is to restore the credibility of a country that is world-renowned for lacking it. It is no coincidence that Argentina has the rating it does, being the biggest defaulter of the modern era. In this regard, every step we take, every deregulation, every reform, every law, every announcement, every meeting, and every agreement has a purpose, ultimately to restore the credibility of a country that was once the richest and most trustworthy in the world. That's why I tell you that you can't imagine what we're going to see in the next 2 years, with the wind at our backs and our sails raised to move forward at full speed. Every single lever that was turned off during the first half of our term is now switched on. We carried out the most significant fiscal adjustment in history, something that supposedly couldn't be done because it's unpopular, and yet we didn't lose support. In fact, we've widened our lead over the other political forces. The social situation is responding very well. We've reduced it by 25 points. Poverty, which means that around 15 million people who previously didn't have enough now live a little better. As a result of winning the elections, we now have much more institutional power in Congress than before. We have consolidated ourselves as the leading force in the Chamber of Deputies. Let me give you a bit of historical context. With this new Congress, Peronism has lost its position as the largest minority in the lower house after 37 years. That is 37 years. And in the Senate, the last time it had so few seats was in 1993. In other words, 33 years ago. So allow me to talk about a turning point in Argentine political history. The effect of this political change is already producing noticeable results. We went from being unable to pass previous budgets to approving the first budget with a fiscal surplus in many years and in record time. In the same session, we also passed the Fiscal Innocence Law, a law designed as a fiscal amnesty for all Argentines who were forced to save cash dollars under their mattresses because of a voracious system devised by politicians. Now, Argentines will be able to deposit their savings in their bank accounts and use them however they wish, as it always should have been. This will further help to lubricate the gears of our economy. At the same time, we restore to the people the sacred principle of innocence, which means that it is an efficient measure, but above all, it is a fair one. All of this adds to the achievements we have managed to secure in the past, such as the incentive regime that provides predictability and fiscal competitiveness to investments over $200 million, that is the RIGI. Under this regime, investments totaling nearly $20 billion have already been approved in key sectors such as infrastructure, mining, steel, energy, automotive, technology, oil, and gas. And there are more than 50 billion more currently under review. We also have the reduction and elimination of tariffs and export duties, tax cuts for various sectors of the economy, and the 13,500 regulations and reforms that we have already implemented. And we still have much to do in the short term. With all that already mentioned in our favor, our next steps will be as follows. We are going to turn into law the free trade agreement we signed with the European Union last weekend. This will open up a market of more than 400 million people for us, representing nearly 20% of the world's GDP. There are already estimates showing that our exports to the European continent will grow by 76% over the next 5 years. In addition, we are going to promote a labor reform law to bring dynamism and competitiveness to an overregulated and stagnant market, which, as of today, has pushed 50% of workers into informality. This will strongly boost our small and medium-sized enterprises, which employ 70% of Argentine workers and have been punished for years. A reform that also includes tax cuts. We are also going to reform the so-called glacier law to federalize environmental criteria so that the different provinces can make decisions about their own territory, which will energize the mining industry. And this is just our parliamentary agenda for next February. We still have many changes to push forward, but we are already at the stage of the curve where each change made greatly multiplies its results, just like compound interest does. To use an analogy from the late Charles Munger, the first 2 years are about pushing our snowball uphill to build its potential energy. Now, over the next 2 years, it will be about pushing the snowball downhill so that Argentina's snowball of growth grows with every passing second. Just by having achieved fiscal balance and maintaining it over time, Argentina would, according to various studies, reach a baseline growth rate of 5% per year. This is a period of growth during which simultaneously public spending will remain fixed in real terms. That difference with the revenue will allow us to continue lowering taxes progressively, further incentivizing growth in a true virtuous circle. Because if, in addition to fiscal balance, we add the reforms we want to implement, we could be talking about sustained growth of 7 or 8% per year. And this is not a number we made up, because yes, but it also has to do with what David Ricardo explained when he put forward the ideas of comparative advantage. Argentina spent a long time closed off to trade, which caused it to stagnate. By deregulating our economy and reopening to the world, the rest of the world will gain one new trading partner, while Argentina will gain dozens of trading partners. This will make us converge back to the average at great speed, just as happened in the Soviet countries after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the dissolution of the Soviet Union. It wouldn't be at all far-fetched to hear people talking in the coming years about growth at Argentine rates. Such growth would mean that in 10 years we would resemble high-income countries. In 20 years, we would be among the richest countries in the world, and in 30 years, we would be on the podium of global powers. In short, we are creating the necessary conditions for the private sector to fully unleash its creative capacity without their property rights being threatened. We want Argentina to offer its potential to the world, a potential that was suppressed for a century by socialism, and today it is dying to come to light. We invite you to join this great endeavor and seize the opportunity of this new era for the Republic. Argentina, a country where everything remains to be done, will welcome you with open arms. Thank you all very much. May God bless you, and may the strength of heaven be with us. And long live freedom, damn it.